Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Jamuna Tirabhanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jamuna Tirabhanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Ramo Ramo Hare Hare Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shata Shishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shata Shishimad His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaura Premanande Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to Shishi Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We read today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 13, entitled The Behavior of a Perfect Person, text number 11, and we're going to read through text number 19, so 11 to 19. Atrapi udaharatinam Atrapi udaharantimam Itihasham puratanam Prahradasya cha sambadam Munir ajagarasyat cha Atrapyudaharantimam Itihasham puratamam Prahradasya cha sambadam Munir ajagarasya cha Atrapyudaharantimam Itihasham puratanam Prahradasya cha sambadam Munir ajagarasya cha. Please chant. Atrapyudaharantimam Itihasham puratanam Prahradasya cha sambadam Munir ajagarasya cha Atrapyudaharantimam Itihasam puratanam Prahradasya cha sambadam Munir ajagarasya cha. Atrapyudaharantimam Itihasham puratanam Prahradasya cha sambadam Munir ajagarasya cha. Atrapyudaharantimam Itihasham puratanam Prahradasya cha sambadam Munir ajagarasya cha. Atra, herein, api, although not exposed to common eyes, udaharanti, the learned sages recite as an example. Imam, this, itihasham, historical incident, puratanam, very, very old, Prahradasya of Prahlad Maharaj, cha also Sambadam conversation, Munehe of the great saintly person, Ajagarasya who took the profession of a python, cha also. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. As a historical example of this, learned sages recite the story of an ancient discussion between Prahlad Maharaj and a great saintly person who was feeding himself like a python. Purport. The saintly person met by Prahlad Maharaj was undergoing Ajagara Vritti, the living conditions of a python, which does not go anywhere but sits in one place for years and eats whatever is automatically available. Prahlad Maharaj, along with his associates, met this great saint and spoke to him as follows. Text 12 to 13, translation. Prahlad Maharaj, the more dear servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, once went out touring the universe with some of his confidential associates just to study the nature of saintly persons. Thus, he arrived at the bank of the Kaveri, where there was a mountain known as Sahya. There he found a great saintly person who was lying on the ground, covered with dirt and dust, but who was deeply spiritually advanced. Text 14. Neither by that saintly person's activity, neither by that saintly person's activities, by his bodily features, by his words, nor by his symptoms of his Vanashram status, could people understand whether he was the same person they had known. Purport. The inhabitants of that particular place on the bank of the Kaveri, in the valley of the mountain known as Sahya, were unable to understand whether that saint was the same man they had known. It is therefore said, Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Vikyena Bujhaya. A highly advanced Vaishnava lives in such a way that no one can understand what he is or what he was. Nor should attempts be made to understand the past of a Vaishnava without asking the saintly persons about his previous life. Prahlad Maharaj immediately offered him respectful obeisances. Text number 15. The advanced devotee Prahlad Maharaj duly worshipped and offered obeisances to the saintly person who has adopted a python's means of livelihood. After thus worshipping the saintly person and touching his own head to the saint's lotus feet, Prahlad Maharaj, in order to understand him, inquired very submissively as follows. Text 16 to 17. Translation. Seeing the saintly person to be quite fat, Prahlad Maharaj said, "My dear sir, you undergo no endeavor to earn your livelihood, but you have a stout body, exactly like that of a materialistic enjoyer. I know that if one is very rich and has nothing to do, he becomes extremely fat by eating and sleeping and performing no work." Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did not like his disciples to become very fat in the course of time. He will become very anxious upon seeing his fat disciples becoming bogies or enjoyers of the senses. This attitude is herewith confirmed by Prahlad Maharaj, who was surprised to see a saintly person adopting Ajagara Bhriti and becoming very fat. In the material world also, we generally see that when a man is poor and skinny, gradually endeavors to earn money through business or some other means, and he then gets the money, he enjoys the senses to his satisfaction. By enjoying the senses, one becomes fat. Therefore, in spiritual advancement, becoming fat is not at all satisfactory. Text 18. Translation. O Brahmana, fully in knowledge of transcendence, you have nothing to do, and therefore you are lying down. It is also understood that you have no money for sense enjoyment. How then has your body become so fat? Under the circumstances, if you do not consider my question impudent, kindly explain how this has happened. Purport. Generally, those engaging in spiritual advancement take food only once, either in the afternoon or in the evening. If one takes food only once, naturally he does not become fat. The learned sage, however, was quite fat, and therefore Prahlad Maharaj was very much surprised. Because of being experienced in self-realization, a transcendentalist certainly becomes bright-faced. And one who is advanced in self-realization must be considered to possess the body of a Brahmana. Because the bright-faced saintly person was lying down and not working, and yet was quite fat, Prahlad Maharaj was puzzled and wanted to question him about this. Text 19. Translation. Your honor appear learned, expert, and intelligent in every way. You can speak very well, saying things that are pleasing to the heart. You see that people in general are engaged in fruitive activities, yet you are lying here inactive. Purport. Prahlad Maharaj studied the bodily features of the saintly person. And through the saint's physiognomy, Prahlad Maharaj could understand that he was intelligent and expert. Although he was lying down and not doing anything, Prahlad was naturally inquisitive about why he was lying there inactive. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmiltam Yena Trasmai Shri Gurube Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitnamine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine. Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Pashatyadi Satarine. Vanchakalpataru Vyasha Kripasindu Vyavacha Patitanam Pavanevi Vaishnavevyo Namo. So it's a wonderful, fascinating story. And then I'm sure we can't wait to see what the answer of the great sage is. It's actually pretty fascinating. So text number 11 tells Narada Muni says that he started with a historical example of this. So what is this that he was referring to? It was the previous verse that was described in the previous series of verses. The beginning of this chapter is the description of the behavior of a perfect person, and was a description of a sannyasi. So then now, here's a perfect example that is recorded in history, that he has been narrated by the great, great saintly persons. One of the many, many examples, but this is one that was a very wonderful. And the illustration is that the behavior of this perfect being, this perfected being, is very difficult to understand by common people. And the previous verse, number 10, I'm sorry, was, the translation was, although a saintly person may not expose himself to the vision of human society, by his behavior his purpose is disclosed. To human society, he should present himself like a restless child, and although he is the greatest thoughtful orator, he should present himself like a dumb man. So in other words, externally, these perfected beings may not be so clear to the common people to understand. In fact, in general, they're pretty much misunderstood. And Nityananda Prana and Saturday was giving some few examples of some of these personalities that were completely misunderstood, that were disguised to the common people. And a very striking example was that of Jat Bharat, who presented himself like a completely crazy person, sort of not only crazy, but sort of retarded. In fact, he had never spoken a word in his life or to that moment. He just mumble and, follow whatever he was pushed to do by his family. And he just externally was a completely crazy, perfectly gone person. And but the fact is that he was the greatest transcendentalist. So it's very difficult to understand the position of a Vaishnava, of a perfect person, unless you are very advanced. There's a common say that says it takes one to understand another one. Is it? That's how it goes. So you have to be in that position of advancement to understand another advanced devotee. And in this case, we see that Prahlad Maharaj could understand that this was a very advanced devotee. Just by a study, Prabhupada in the purport say, just by a study the physiognomy of this personality, he could understand this. He was a very advanced saint. And then he showed in a very wonderful manner the proper etiquette when you approach a saintly person, the principle of pariprasnena sevaya, that in a very submissive way you offer service and then you inquire. So Prahlad Maharaj, when he met the saintly person, he worshipped him. So he offers service. And in a very submissive way, then he asked, because it was puzzling externally the way this sage was presenting. The external presentation of the sage was very puzzling, because there are certain there's certain expectations, and there's a general outlook of a saintly person. And in this case is that this saintly person was very fat. So a renunciant A fat renunciant is something that doesn't work, uh, it doesn't fit the conception of a renunciant. A renunciant means that you don't focus too much on the body. And a very stout fat person, he becomes fat by eating. And eating means you have to, indulge in something on the tongue. So that's the general conception. And if you don't have the type of acumen that Prahlad Maharaj has, then obviously you misunderstand. You won't be able to understand, oh, here's a saintly person, so you basically neglect and sometimes offend, like in the case of Jat Bharat. The whole town used to do horrible things to him, abuse him. The children would spit at him. They will come and urinate on him. I mean, horrible, like barbarian things they will do because he was treated like some crazy person. So the whole town would abuse him. This was a very gross people. But even brahmanas, they don't care about him. So if you are not in that level of advancement, you won't be able to recognize. And that is a very important lesson that we have to keep in mind when we are in the association of devotees, when we move in the circles of Vaishnava association. We have to be very careful, because the fact is that it will be very difficult to understand a Vaishnava, to understand the mindset of the Vaishnava. There's also an instruction that warns us about to try to understand the mind and the activities of a Vaishnava. So we have to be very careful with etiquette, with the etiquette of dealing with Vaishnavas. And one very also wonderful example is that just by the profile of a sannyasi, of a sadhu, we have the examples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who was topmost a transcendentalist. And when he established his mission, he was a great revolutionary. He basically took a whole tradition and adjusted it in such a way to being able to fulfill the mission of Lord Chaitanya's movement to actually take the world, the modern world. So he made certain adjustments that were sort of like not necessarily following the traditional path, although it was very much in line with the teachings of Lord Chaitanya and the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Pretty much in line, but he adjusted what it was traditional. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, in general, the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they were following the footsteps of the Goswamis. Their the profile was a profile of the Goswamis, and this is from the times of Lord Chaitanya, that they advance Vaishnavas, Gaudiya Vaishnavas. They will be at one point taking the garb of a Babaji, of a renunciant, just like the Goswamis. They just use, a loincloth, copings, and they will sleep under a tree, different tree every day, and hardly eat, and very much concentrate, very much focus on their spiritual practices. It is explained that they were so absorbed in the meditation of the passions of Radha and Krishna that they will basically be like a madman in the forest of Vrindavan, just looking for Krishna in different forests and by the Jamuna River, like that. So they were very much absorbed in the pastimes of Lord Krishna in Vrindavan. And that was a tradition up to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was probably he was a great visionary too, and he started to create the basis in which the movement of Lord Chaitanya will go to the whole world. But Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, at one point in his spiritual pastimes, he took also the garb of a renunciant, and he retired, and he just absorbed himself in his bhajan. So traditionally, that's how the Gaudiya Vaishnavas will go. Now, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he did something quite radical. He did took the life of a renunciant, Babaji, of a Bhajananandi, who focused on bhajan, and for 10 years he went through the activities of a Babaji. Basically, he was doing exactly the same that Srila Haridas Thakur will do. The same sadhana, the same practices of Srila Haridas Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was doing. He make a vow to chant 1 billion? 1 billion names of Krishna. And then it took it, so many years to do that, to complete that vow. He was living in a simple hut, in a very, very retired place in the Mayapur area. That it is explained that the roof was broken, that rain will come. Anyway, it was severe austerities. But after doing that, when he completed, he took he gave himself, he put a picture of his Guru Maharaj, and he took the initiation into Tridandi Sannyas. So, so he assumed the position from being a Paramahansa, renunciant, to be in the position of this that is explained here. The Paramahansa is beyond now the 4 classes or the 4 spiritual ashrams, sannyas. It goes beyond that. And he then took back, a step back into the position of going into the world again, but as a preacher. So from being a Bhajananandi, he took the position of a Goshtiyanandi. The Goshtiyanandi is the preacher, the one who takes the mission of going to the public, the ignorant public, and educating in Krishna consciousness. So, in doing that, he basically transformed or adjusted the whole tradition of the whole movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and created basically the blueprint of how to take this this Sankirtan movement into the whole world. He created an institution, and he preached something that it was very, very challenging and puzzling for the Brahminical community at that time. Even also to followers of Lord Chaitanya, or so-called followers. Different, well, I won't say so-called again, is the same, the principle of I'm not in the level to discriminate, but it was difficult to understand even for other lineages of Gaudiya Vaishnavas, because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he externally he was riding in cars, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was on your face. He wasn't shy on that to make his point, and especially in the hub of the different lineages that came from the Gaudiya Vaishnavism that were in Vrindavan, that some of them were like, here's the tradition and this is what it is. Basically, you have to come to the position of entering into your personal bhajan and then prepare yourself to go back home and absorb yourself in the meditation, the Lila Smarana. So there comes Srila Bhaktisiddhanta as the great leader of the Gaudiya Vaishnavism at that time, and comes riding in a big convertible car that only kings will have, and then with a big jacket made in England, like a coat. You see him, a nice turban. So he looked like a king, and he would ride during Kartik, when all the Vaishnavas will come to Vrindavan for Kartik, for doing the Kartik Brata in Vrindavan. And there he arrived, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, with thousands of followers, riding a car, with the garb of a very wealthy person. So externally, people were very puzzled to understand the position, his position. But he was the greatest Vaishnava, and his vision was the vision that Srila Prabhupada took, and the way he created this whole this whole strategy to actually take Krishna consciousness into the world. Srila Prabhupada applied perfectly, and Srila Prabhupada was successful because of that. Because he followed by the letter what his Guru Maharaj envisioned, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta envisioned. So, to the point, there are some people who go as far as criticizing Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati by basically saying that the process that he has given it won't be able to reach the ultimate destination, and that just prove, how poor lack of comprehension, and also not only that, falling into the space of making terrible offenses to, greatest representative of Lord Chaitanya. So back to the point, it is very important to be able to properly discriminate, and that brings us, if I have the question will be, if I don't have the acumen, the spiritual acumen to be able to discriminate, then how do I do? When I see something and that is puzzling, externally appears this way, and it doesn't fit the profile, that we have of a sadhu, of a saintly, or the Vaishnava. So then what do we do? Well, the answer is that we have to be very careful and mindful. And we have to always keep in mind that the cultivation that we have, or the instruction that we receive, is that we have to cultivate certain qualities. And they have been basically encapsulated in the instruction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Shikshastaka, Trinarapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahisnuna Manina Bananena Kirtanija Sadahari. We have to cultivate humility, and we have to cultivate tolerance, and we have to cultivate the mood of offering respects without expecting respect to ourselves. It's not an easy thing, but we do have to cultivate that. And we have to be very mindful in our dealings with each other that humility should be there. So when we see something that we don't understand, then Prahlad Maharaj showed a beautiful etiquette. He, in a very respectful way and in submissive way, he asks. He asks for an explanation. Not like, it's different. So the key is respectful and submissive. The other one will be like, you put an affront of, asking the question, but inside you say, yeah, this guy is bogus. Or this is not right. You already pass a judgment. So when we already pass a judgment, then the heart is already closed. So it's better that we be very careful not to pass judgment, and to give the benefit of the doubt, so we can ask, because that's the thing. Sometimes we get confused that I don't want to commit an offense, so I just turn a blind eye, or I just don't say anything, and and inside I may be a little like start to close myself. But the point is that we can ask. What we have to ask we can ask for an explanation, but we have to be given the benefit of the doubt before passing a judgment. In general, we have to, yeah. And however that turns, I mean, there are certain times that is not as simple as that and as straightforward as that, but the instruction is that we have to be careful. We have to come from the position that I have all kinds of filters that doesn't allow me to fully see things, from the spiritual perspective. And as long as those filters are there and I'm aware of them, because that's what is expecting from each one of us who are aspiring transcendentalists, that we become aware, that we start to become more and more aware of each one of the filters that we have that doesn't allow us. There's this material condition that we have that puts a condition in the way we understand the world and things like that, and especially spiritual things. So we have to be aware of that, and because I'm aware of that, I'm always conscious that, well, I'm seeing through my filters. So I better, act under the protection of etiquette, Vaishnava etiquette. And then the other answer to what to do in order to understand something that is puzzling, when we don't have the spiritual acumen, we take shelter of someone who has that spiritual acumen. And we can ask for advice to sort of deal with our doubts. So we can ask. That's why the relationship with the spiritual master is of tremendous importance in our development and in our growth in Krishna consciousness, because there's so many things that are perplexing. And when there's something that is perplexing, then we can ask our spiritual master. We can submit the question. Again, with respect and so before passing judgment, we try to understand. I have it as a principle too. There's many things that you observe, and you may observe, you may pass, certain judgment of the activities of a devotee. But then I see, if my spiritual master is that have, the spiritual acumen, he accepts the service of this devotee, or he respects the service of this devotee, or he, then who am I to understand better? So in that position, from that perspective, I say, okay, then let me try rather to understand, trying to focus on these filters that I have to be able to understand better how things are in terms of devotees. So externally, it's quite this tendency that conditioned souls have of passing judgment and trying to relate to the world according to how we see the world, and have an expectation that things sort of fit, that way of seeing the world, is always a source of so much distension. And that's the material world. The material world, distinction means that there is false ego. False ego means is that we are basically sort of centered around me, and the things that belongs to me, the things that are in my purview. Aham mameti, I am, and this is mine. So you have so many centers of like that with everybody. So it's a natural source of distinction. The differences, it becomes the rule that and those who are sort of similar to me, then we can work together. But those who are different, it becomes difficult. It becomes almost sometimes impossible. So, and the fact is that we all bring something different. There will be, even when people who have similarities, there are some differences too. And we have to be able to learn to work in this environment in which there's unity in purpose and quite an understanding, tolerance, and respect on the differences. And we have to create that type of atmosphere. That atmosphere is the atmosphere of Vrindavan. That's the atmosphere of the spiritual world. The atmosphere in which, that difference and unity are quite perfectly harmonious. The principle of Achintya Veda Veda Tattva, that there is unity and diversity together, harmonious. In the material world, these are two separate things. Unity only with those who are like you, and difference, they're separated. That's not a spiritual thing. So we have to be very mindful of this. Anyway, these are some thoughts that came from this series of verses, and we eagerly will wait for the answers of the Python sage explaining why he was fat. So, any questions or comments? Yeah, Jai.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for your class. You pretty much answered my question, but I think I could still ask one particular one. One thing in our society I appreciate about Prabhupada mentioning Adi Leela 135 is that there are many Shikshha gurus. One can have many. And because sometimes in our society, it's not like we're dealing with one guru, we're dealing with several gurus. And sometimes there's contradictory. Some devotees emphasize discrimination, and some devotees don't emphasize it. And everything's a trial and error thing. Everyone can see I could experiment, what's giving me the most peace of mind. So it's nothing to take seriously, but anyone can experiment. And so I had the opportunity to read on ahead, and basically the theme of this whole chapter was what any teaching is basically Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ata Eva Shant. If you're a Bhakta, and if you're a Christian devotee, and you have desires, then you'll always be unpeaceful. So, and we hear that in chapter 14 of the Gita. Krishna says that if you desire honor or dishonor or anything that's other than Krishna Bhakti, then you'll always be peaceful, because we can see that in the material world. We're not going to always be honored. If our happiness dependent on honor or dishonor, then we'll always be unpeaceful. And my question basically is related to all your points. You pretty much answered it. Pretty much, is there any excuse? You already made the point. You already made it. Trinadapi Sunichena. But we can see in our society, no devotee is running a drug ring or a prostitution ring or a gun ring. And so we can see that in the material world, these desires are, these material desires which cause us suffering kind of given to us. Like, for example, I remember when I was 5 years old, I'll never forget this. Somebody stuck their middle finger up at me. But I didn't know what it meant, so I wasn't mad. I was like, peaceful. And then later on, I found what it meant. And then I was like, are you serious he did that? And we could see that in the material world. You're told you're a woman, and previously, before you were told you're a woman, somebody treats you like an inferior woman, you didn't care, or somebody, say the N word. So these desires are kind of given to us like friends and enemies, and then it completely destroys our consciousness. So, my question is there any reason to, is it my, basically, is it a form of false ego to think we have to get involved in another devotee's life? Like, Krishna's not in control. Like, devotees are not running prostitution rings, gun rings, or anything. So why it's necessary to say anything about any devotee? Because it's not like evil can't befall us. That's what Bhaktisiddhanta said in this article. Be humbler than a blade of grass. He was like, evil could befall anyone. So there's no reason to criticize any Vaishnava. So is it a form of false ego? Basically, that's my question. To think we're in control. We have to say something to anybody, unless it's like a prostitution ring. Of course, we're not going to say, all right, don't say nothing if you're running a prostitution ring. He might be a Vaishnava. So
Yeah, the common sense is that what is the use of just getting into criticism of a Vaishnava or anyone? I mean, yeah, you can. It's a nice practice not to do that. I mean, basically, that's it. I mean, it's common sense. What is the use of what benefit does it does for you? What benefit does for the person? So we try to avoid that. And in terms of there's many shiksha gurus, and they may have different styles, but no one would recommend for one just to be whimsical and just like you will use the word experimenting. I know you probably didn't mean it like that, but in general, to have whimsical experimentation is not recommended for anyone who is trying to pursue, growing spiritually and become Krishna consciousness. We have to be very much under the guidance of a spiritual authority. There's no escape for that. That's Krishna's program. Tat vidhi paripratena pariprasana shevaya. That verse, is like dictated by Krishna. You have to come under the discipline and the instruction of a spiritual master. And obviously you have shikshas and diksha gurus, and there's one thing, someone may instruct you this way or that way, but the principle applies. There's no such a thing of, oh, let me experiment this or let me experiment that. And now, there's one thing that we understand as devotees, and experience will tell you that, because each one of us is going through a whole process. And when you're going through a whole process, you become pretty much sympathetic of what it takes to grow in Krishna consciousness. So one thing that at least I learned is that everybody have a timing. So you can expect, there's not such a thing of, there's a cookie cut, mold that it will work for everybody. No, everybody have his own timing. I have, like, my wife got initiated in something in the matter of a year. For me, it took me almost like a decade to get initiated. So, everything has a time. And you can sort of criticize just, this guy is a bum. He just, he just doesn't want to take, advance like that. No. We have to appreciate, we have to appreciate the devotion. We have to appreciate, the person, that part that the person brings. The other parts, we have to be encouraging and tolerating. It's just better. It's a better principle to help, to appreciate, try not to criticize. It helps us in our growth in Christian consciousness, because criticism sort of makes the heart, unhappy, and it brings all kinds of things. Appreciation, on the other hand, if it fills the heart with, very positive things. So we should cultivate that, appreciating devotees, appreciating the devotion of every single person. Like, these things that you do regularly. You come to Bhagavatam class and you sit, and sing for Kishore regularly. And, who will not appreciate that? It's beautiful. And, thank you so much, for doing that. It's something, so, and that's it. When I think of yourself, I think you're singing your heart to Kishore in the morning. So, it's nice.
Thank you. One brief last point that maybe you misunderstood one of my points. You were mentioning whimsical experimentation. My point was to the chapter I quoted in Gita, chapter 14, where Krishna says, don't distinguish between enemies and friends. So we could see in the material world, even if you have a family member within a family member or any relationship, or even with the same religion, the modes come up, like envy or pride. So my understanding of experimentation is that Krishna says you have to treat everyone equally, friends and enemy. That even if you're in the same family, if you don't treat someone equally, like if somebody disrespects you, you'll be miserable if you don't treat them like a friend. So treat friends, enemy equally. So in that sense, that's what I meant by everyone can experiment, because what's giving me, because if somebody mistreats me, I'll discriminate. Don't talk to them forever. Somebody mistreats me in my religion, in my family, in my thing, I won't. If we had that discrimination, so that was maybe one point you misunderstood. I wanted to clarify.
No, it's clear. I mean, we can stop here, but it's clear that regardless of how we name it, the principle is that in our position, we're students. We need, we don't have the spiritual acumen to make discriminations from the spiritual level. Like Prahlad Maharaj could recognize a saintly person even in that condition. We may not be able to recognize. I see a bum in the street, fat and like that. I say, well, let me, and you continue, But so it's better to take shelter of those. That's why it's important to take shelter of a Tattvadarshi, or someone who is a spiritual advance. And then they help us. They teach us how to discriminate by telling us, this is what you do. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.